everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Wes Hodkiewicz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field. And, Wes, I know the big news this week in the NFL will be the schedule release on Wednesday, so our second show of this week will focus on that. But for this show, on Monday here at Packers headquarters, we in the media got to hear from the Packers' three coordinators, Rich Bisaccia, Jeff Hafley, Adam Stenavich. The only time that those coordinators will meet with the media until training camp rolls around. So I'm just going to throw out an open-ended question. We will discuss all three in some way, shape, or form and what we heard. But what was your most interesting takeaway from hearing from the coordinators?
I think it's going to be your most interesting takeaway as well, Mike, and that is the fact that Edgerrin Cooper is turning eyes around the Lambeau Field facility. We have not seen him yet, you and I as the writers. We are not down in the football area. But Jeff Hafley, the first thing he asked the reporters was, have you seen him yet? And he said he's bigger. And it was in his estimation that Cooper is probably hovering closer to 240 now after being listed last year at 229, which is the natural progression. I think it's where everyone saw this young man going in year two. Not only does that help in terms of the game of football itself, but also his durability, which was something the Packers were looking for after he battled a couple little nagging injuries here and there during his rookie season. But Michael, that was really the only blemish on this thing. This dude, getting some votes for Defensive Rookie of the Year, obviously an all PFWA rookie member. This is a very, very talented young man. And where last year it was a real big question of, okay, where do the Packers fit him in? How do you get him on the field? I think that side of it is gone now. The question is, where is he going to play? How often is he going to play there? And how can he affect the overall defense?
And I think hearing from Hafley how he seems to have reshaped his body a little bit and taken the off-season strength and conditioning that seriously just speaks to how dedicated he is to being available for this team on a weekly basis, and how disappointed he was as a rookie that he had to deal with those injuries. And now there are no guarantees. I mean, anything can happen at any point in a given football game. It's a collision sport, and bad things happen all the time. So this doesn't guarantee that Edgerrin Cooper is going to play every single game for the Packers in 2025. But he is working to put himself in the best possible shape, in the best possible condition to not have to replay his rookie season where he was in and out of the lineup and also in and out of practice and training camp for that matter. I mean, he wants to be available and ready to go start to finish. And when you think about that with the possibilities with this defense, it starts to open your eyes a little bit. Sticking on the topic of Jeff Hafley, the thing that really stood out to me, a line of his that really spoke to me, and just all these years that I've been doing this, and we try to communicate with fans and everything else. To hear Jeff Hafley say that he was very proud of the defense and how hard they were playing and how well the unit was playing at the end of the year. Obviously, it was a solid performance against Philadelphia in the wild card game. But then he said the biggest question for him in year two is how fast can the Packers get back to that level? And I thought the way he phrased that was very, very crucial, because first he says, how fast can the Packers get back to that? Which is an acknowledgement that in this league, you can't just pick up where you left off. It doesn't work that way. As much as the fans would like to say, well, the Packers are playing great defense at the end of 2024, they ought to be able to start 2025 playing just like that. No, it doesn't work that way. So the mindset of the defensive coordinator is just this is the reality. He's happy with how they finished the season, but now the goal is to get back to that as quickly as possible. And then also along those lines, knowing as the leader of the defense and as the coordinator, the faster he can get that unit back to that level, then the greater opportunity there is for growth and progress to get hopefully to another level for another stretch run for the Packers in 2025.
I was playing a game with my son on Sunday. It's like Minions something from Despicable Me.
Okay.
So the little minions run around, and you got to like jump over fire hydrants and get on ladders and get on rocket ships and all that. Killian's much better at the game than I am, okay? So
Imagine that.
Go figure. I play it the first time around, and I end up bumping into something, electrical cord or something, so then I restart. So the second time around, I'm like, I'm ready now. I'm set. And you know what happens? The whole course changed. It's not the same thing over and over again. When I was a kid, Mario didn't change. It was the same thing, the same level. You just mastered it and you moved on. No, these kids are doing it differently these days. Defensively, that's what it's like in the National Football League. Offensively, too. Just because the Packers had success with some of the exotic looks they had in 2024, just because in some ways they didn't have the success they wanted with the four-man rush last season, it isn't a precursor for what's going to happen in 2025.
Right.
Jeff Hafley recognizes that. So when he was asked the question by Matt Schneidman, which was a great question about basically what kind of defense do you want to be, the question is, yeah, you have a construct, a concept of a plan that you're going to go into the season with, but can you actually facilitate it the way you think? And if not, is evolution involved? And regardless, there is adaptation that is going to be required throughout the course of the season. Look at the 2014 Packers when Clay Matthews moved to inside linebacker.
Right.
But all that being said, what excites me about this, Mike, is last season, Hafley was in his first year with this defense. He's trying to figure out which pieces he's going to plug in, which pieces they're going to take out of it. And by the end of the year, it was a top 5 unit because of how they constantly adapted to what their situation was. I think that's what gives me the most really excitement about this scheme. Hafley's a sharp dude with a good scheme, and he proved that whether it's in the middle of a game or week by week, he can make those adjustments. And you have guys like Cooper now that, Mike, let's be honest, man, you've been around here a long time. I'd put Cooper, at least in my 14 years covering this team, right in the top 5 for the most impressive rookies that we've seen coming out of the gate.
I would
and now
agree.
He gets to be another year wiser.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's the thing that really intrigues me about Jeff Hafley with this defense in year 2. As you said, he acknowledged at the podium, okay, so the Packers went from trying to get a lot done with a standard 4-man rush. You want to rush 4 and cover 7. That's what's going to give you the best opportunity for turnovers in the back end. It didn't really work out that way. He had to get a little bit more exotic about how exactly he was going to rush 4 and cover 7, but that's what he wanted to stay in most of the time. Mm-hmm. So you try these different fire zone looks and all this, and guys coming from different angles and other guys dropping off the defensive line. Okay, now every single opponent on the Packers schedule for 2025 has all of that game film to digest of, okay, this is what Jeff Hafley likes to do in Green Bay. And Hafley knows that. Yep. Hafley knows that all the opponents have been studying that. So the really intriguing question, which of course is the one he's not going to answer at the podium, is, hey man, what else you got up your sleeve? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's because, hey, there are a gazillion different ways to play defense in this game, and there are all kinds of different things you can try. And if you feel like you have the personnel to try some different things, see if you can get them to master certain concepts. Who knows where this Packers defense is going to be at the end of 2025 compared to the end of 24 or the beginning of 25. It's the biggest point from Hafley is that it is a constant evolution in this game. And if you are not evolving on either side of the ball, you are falling behind because the league is just too competitive, and everybody has every square inch of film to watch on you of everything that you've ever done.
It's the old Billy Bean adage, man, adapt or die. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do in this position and in this job. I feel like he's been really good at it. And Michael, you and I said it so often last year, but my goodness, I just want to give a quick shout out to this guy, because in addition to how thorough and in-depth and conversational Hafley is at the podium, this is the only time, as you said, we're getting these guys during the offseason program. He has like a 15-minute window to do interviews, and time was up, but yet he still was asking if there's anybody else that needs questions asked. And they weren't all just, softballs either. There's some tough stuff that he's being asked right now about the construct of this football team. Hafley took the time, he did that. And again, this is the type of dude I want to play for. You're talking about head coaches and press conferences and all that. I've said it time and time again. It's like listening to an engaging college professor when he's up there explaining this thing. You can feel his passion for it.
Yeah, I would agree. We'll get to the other coordinators we heard from in just a minute, but I will take care of our sponsor business. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. And at Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone. Like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50 plus years of better. All right, I saw that.
You did.
All right, so we've touched on Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator, Adam Stenavich, offensive coordinator. What was your primary takeaway from hearing him address the media for the first time in the offseason?
So many interesting things to go over with him. I think the biggest aspect of it is the current situation that Green Bay faces with these receivers and the multitude that they have available to them despite Christian Watson's injury right now. And Jason Willie had asked the question, which I thought was a great question, about, hey, you look at what happened with Jaden Reed at the end of last season. He got kind of banged up, obviously a pretty significant shoulder injury that they're expecting him to be healed from going into the season. But that happened in Philly. He was with the sling when we were in the locker room.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed went through a lot last year and has been the most productive receiver Green Bay's had in terms of just his pure statistics the past 2 seasons. Is there things Green Bay can do to take the load off of him? Can Savion Williams help in that capacity? And as Stenavich said, he thinks Williams and Matthew Golden, the first-round pick, both can do things that help him out. From Golden's perspective, this is a guy that runs a 4.29. You can place him anywhere, and he's already, even though they are not catching passes and doing routes and all that type of stuff in terms of the in-game 11-on-11, 7-on-7 stuff, he's shown a lot, whether it was the rookie minicamp or just some of the things that they're seeing behind the scenes right now with him. A very exciting young player that definitely is mature beyond his years. Savion Williams, man, I'll tell you what, somebody had asked this question in Insider Inbox that I'm answering for what will be Tuesday's column. Do you think the Packers and Brian Gutekunst, they were excited? They thought they see a Taysom Hill type player in Williams. While I don't think that's the natural comparable, I think it is really exciting when you see a guy with all this college film, and now you get to pick what you want to use him, how you want to use him. What tools does he present that you think can benefit your offense right off the bat? In that way, I think this is one of the more exciting offenses I think I'm going to cover with the Green Bay Packers because, again, as much as you and I talked last year about all these receivers that can do different things, now you have a guy like Williams that has that many carries under his belt, has thrown a pass at the college level, and seems to have a pretty good arm too. That was interesting, and you can just kind of see the enthusiasm, the excitement with Stenavich too, kind of talking about what the potential build of this offense can be with these 2 rookies coming in. Yeah, and I think to connect it even a little bit to last year on the defensive side, whether you're talking about Edgerrin Cooper or Evan Williams playing in the back end as a rookie with Xavier McKinney, the progress that these rookies hopefully are going to show throughout the course of their first seasons in the NFL, where the Packers offense is down the stretch in 2025 could be very different. Very different. Where it is at the beginning. If these young guys are going to be up to contributing and answering the call, and the coaches are going to push them, they're going to test them, how much can they handle schematically? Mm-hmm. How much can you feed them that they will understand the responsibilities, the different roles, and then getting those worked into game plans. The other thing that I kind of got a kick out of listening to Steno at the podium is the old offensive lineman was showing through there a bit because for those who don't know, Adam Stenavich, Wisconsin native, Marshfield, Wisconsin, in the center of the state, went and played left tackle at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Spent some time during his pro career in Green Bay. But when he got to the NFL, he was one of those left tackles who was moved inside to guard and then sort of had to become the jack-of-all-trades backup. He had to be ready to step in as a reserve offensive lineman at any position where he might be needed. He really, really likes this group that the Packers have continued to put together on the offensive line in terms of versatile players, guys that are challenged and expected to learn and understand multiple positions. And he's really fired up about the competitions that are going to be developing here, whether you're talking about Jordan Morgan and Rasheed Walker at left tackle, and if Anthony Belton, the second-round draft pick, gets into that mix, or if it's Morgan and Sean Ryan at right guard, he's really, really excited to see just where these different versatile pieces, how they compete for certain spots, and then how it all comes together. Not just the starting 5, but then, okay, who's number 6, 7, and 8, and how many different spots can they rely on 6, 7, and 8 to fill in for when they need them? People always, and I'm not criticizing anyone for this, but fans always, really perseverate on what the starting five is and what is the secondary going to look like and all this. And so often what we envision, even during training camp, even the end of training camp, differs greatly from what we see at the end of the season. 75% of the time it's due to injuries. I mean, how many people last year, Mike, had Keyshawn Nixon earmarked for a perimeter cornerback for most of the season, right? But that's the way the cookie crumbled. When you look at the offensive line, the Packers were remarkably healthy throughout the course of the season, but then Elton Jenkins injures his shoulder in Philadelphia, and now they're playing multiple guys in those spots. How you build out the line for 6, 7, 8 is almost as important as building the starting five itself. And what intrigues me, and I talked about this on our show last week, is there are so many different variations and variables and how would I say it?
Manifestations.
Manifestations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was doing so well, and then I ran into a roadblock.
That's okay.
My thought process.
It happens.
But
the show truly is unscripted.
I should have only gone with 2 things. I tried to turn it into the trilogy. That didn't work. My point being is that if you have a Jordan Morgan who can play multiple positions, if you have an Anthony Belton who could potentially contribute at multiple spots, that makes your offensive line stronger down the run. Not only does it push a Rasheed Walker for the left tackle job, but it gives you an option there depending on if Walker wins that and still has an injury or something like that. You have to be able to go there. And when you look at the Packers' offensive lines over the last 15 years, that's where they've been really strong. Everybody was looking at Jordan Morgan a year ago at this time. Not a lot of people were talking about Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan ends up starting 17 games at right guard last season.
Yep.
You have to be able to have plan B, C, D, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Rich Bisaccia, assistant head coach, special teams coordinator. He's actually the first one we heard from at the podium. We'll talk about him as our third one here. If there's one thing I took away from that more than anything else, it's the reminder of how coaches in this league absolutely perseverate on failures, on things that go wrong. Yeah. Rich Bisaccia was talking about, basically was pointing out the biggest moments over his 3 years with Matt LaFleur where he feels the Packers special teams have let down the squad in terms of their performance. And he articulated the different moments, and everybody knows the major ones and what they are. I felt like after hearing Coach Bisaccia talk like that I could look at his his coaching resume and go, okay, he was coaching special teams with the Cowboys in 2014. Okay, Rich, name me a play in 2014 where your special teams. I mean, and he would know, would know, because that's how these coaches are. They are always focused on trying to fix what goes wrong. And it was also interesting to hear just in the way that he talks about things, whether he's talking about Anders Carlson missing a field goal in the playoff game in San Francisco 2 years ago, or Keyshawn Nixon fumbling the opening kickoff in the playoff game. Rich Bisaccia talks about that, and he calls it we-fence for a reason. He talks about we let the team down. He doesn't put it just on the players that there was a failure and that there was a mistake. He feels it. He takes the responsibility for it as the coach, that his unit needs to perform better, and that's on him. And I think it speaks to the culture of accountability that we've seen across the board with this team, and it's why, even though, yes, 2024 didn't finish the way the Packers wanted it to. They didn't get as far as they did in 2023 and all that kind of stuff. But man, there is a culture of accountability around here that they know what went wrong, they know why it went wrong, and they're going to try their darndest to learn from it and move forward from it, and that's what has you excited about 2025.
It's an excellent point, and to me, I was sitting there thinking about this. It almost reminds you of the old poker player adage, where it's like you always remember your bad beats and your losses.
That's right.
When you do the pots that you've won, and that's kind of what it's been for Bisaccia, because there's been a lot of positives mixed in there too, but certainly it's the moments where you feel like your team adversely affected the whole squad.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that he was sort of talking about. The other thing, too, I thought was very important that he mentioned was the topic of Keyshawn Nixon came up again. And we don't know what's going to happen as far as this return situation. The Packers drafted a couple guys that have return experience, including Golden. They signed McCole Hardman. He's involved in this thing now. Yep. But It did sound in some ways like, without talking to Keyshawn, it did sound like cooler heads have kind of prevailed. As Bisaccia said, after the Philadelphia game, he wasn't in a great mood either. Nobody was, with how that game went, with how that fumble on that kickoff return, everything that came out of that. But he always will look at Nixon as being in the mix with kickoff returns, and he's a 2-time All-Pro. It's something he's done very well at this level. Again, we have to see what the construct of the 53 looks like, what your game day roster looks like. But the fact of the matter is, Nixon goes back a long, long way with Bisaccia.
Yep.
Those aren't two guys that just got paired together in Green Bay. They're going back to the rookie season for Keyshawn now 6 years ago. There is a bond that has been forged there, and we'll see exactly how it all shuffles out. It was also interesting, too, hearing him talk a little bit about Nate Hobbs, and Hobbs was effusive in his praise of Bisaccia when we first met him back in March, and just how much of an impact he had on him, not only as a player but as a person. Now he comes into the fold here into Green Bay, in addition to, you look at Bisaccia being extremely excited about him being here. Also, Jeff Hafley talked about it. He's seen him play inside. He's seen him play outside. The Packers are going to play him at both. They feel like this guy's entire repertoire is open to them, and they want to take advantage of it. So football is so much about connections as it is as much as about the playbook. And I feel like in that type of, with those two guys, both Nixon and Hobbs, two former Raiders, you're kind of feeling that so far.
Yeah, at the end of the day, as much as everything's about X's and O's and 40 times and all this other kind of stuff, it's as with any business, it's a people business.
Yes,
and
for sure.
And the more we get to hear from coaches and they talk about their relationships with players and whatnot, you get a little bit better sense behind the scenes as to how these guys connect and how coaches and players and all these guys in the locker room, become a team. And even though it's the pros and everybody's collecting their paychecks, there's a lot to be said for relationships and the way people relate to one another.
Leadership is leadership, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I've been around long enough now to feel this and work for enough different companies to know this. I mean, yes, the spotlight is very bright and it's very hot on NFL coaches and players alike, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you get guys rallied to play for you, to work for you, to want to succeed for you? I think Bisaccia does that, and listening to Jeff Hafley and the rest of this coaching staff, I mean, it was funny. Another thing that came up in Insider Inbox as I'm putting this together is it's not easy to put together a successful foundation in the National Football League. The Packers have done that. This was the 8th draft of Brian Gutekunst as general manager now. This is
where has the time gone, my friend?
We're going into season 7 now, right? With Matt LaFleur as head coach.
Yeah.
This thing moves quick, but when you do build that success and that culture, and you have a foundation that you can bring guys into and warm them into, that's one of the big benefits that Green Bay's had for 3 decades now, and certainly trying to change that, and not change that, but translate that into another championship in 2025.
Yeah, well, as I said at the top of the show, the big news this week in the NFL will be the schedule release on Wednesday night. Are you ready for this?
I'm so ready for it, because there's a Mumford & Sons concert at the Fiserv Forum, I believe, in October 19th. And I need to know whether or not I can go to that, or we're going to be traveling.
Yeah, okay.
If we're home, though, my goodness, I might include that as one of my 10 things to know about the schedule release. The Packers are home, and I can go to the Mumford & Sons concert.
All right. Well,
yes, the answer is I'm very excited.
I say, yeah, you're very ready for this. And on our next show, we will talk about anything and everything with regards to the Packers schedule, and maybe even for another show after that, depending on what it looks like. Who knows? But for now, we're going to call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.